Everybody still sharing?
I mean,
I'll share it on my feed.
Alright.
We are live.
Okay, I don't have Facebook. Is there anywhere I could share this?
not
Yeah.
the live feed, but when he does the clip like on Instagram, you can share that.
No. You know what I'll do? I will copy the feed, the link to the Facebook, and then you can put that on Twitter, right? You have a Twitter?
We're live.
I got Twitter a week ago. No se rían.
You're like David. David just.
I did it. It took me a second, but I figured out how to do it. I did it. I couldn't find it, and then I did it. The share button was hidden.
Off the air, David said, "Hey guys, have you heard about Reddit? It's fucking
Oh
great."
my god.
Now imagine if you haven't heard about Reddit after this week.
Yeah. Now.
Yeah.
That being, anyways, welcome to the Mt.Geekmore podcast, your favorite podcast where you come to watch, listen, and to come and watch people listen to. Why did I get tongue-tied so quickly? Welcome
You're nervous.
I know. Welcome to the Mt.Geekmore podcast, your favorite podcast to come listen to people talk, debate, and argue over their favorite Mount Rushmore, top 4 of you, Mount Rushmore of their favorite pop culture subjects. Today's pop culture subject, we are doing the Mount Rushmore of movies released in 1994. So for those of us of a certain age, this is the sweet spot, right? Right around this time.
Was David born?
David?
Of course, I was born, man.
Like 5.
Like 2 years old, 3 years old, maybe. I don't know.
I was 6.
Okay.
Get out of here.
All right. Where the rest of us were able to
7. I was 7.
the rest of us were able to purchase movie tickets and go to see these movies legally. So
I was in high school.
Yeah. So shout out to David for being the young one, man. All right. So if you are new to the podcast, we go around the horn and we talk to we get each other's picks and we go one by one, 4, 3, 2, and then 1. And we find out which is the Mount Rushmore of movies that were released in 1994. If somebody has a choice, a pick that somebody else has later on in the game, we table it. So there you go. Well, your table, and then we can't fucking talk about it until that shit happens. I am Nary Science. With me, as usual, is David Ulloa.
Howdy.
And we have Missy.
Hello.
And today we're welcoming back, because it's been a long time, but we've had him before, DJ from the Geek Bro podcast. Pero let me tell you.
Hello. And by the way, Neri, today when Neri was telling me about joining you guys, I'm like, oh, so are we like meeting up at your house again? And he's like, what?
I was like,
what is this, 2019?
I know.
I like clutched my pearls. I was like, excuse me?
Like, I don't know. We could I mean, your room is cozy, but we could social distance.
No.
Cozy is a good word for that room, actually.
Yeah.
Cozy is a perfect word.
Legit. No. I was like, are we doing this in person? I was like, this guy's mad. He's mad, I tell you. He's mad. All right. So let's go around the horn. David, how did you guys make your selections? David, how did you make your picks, man?
So this being the 5th entry in our series of movies released in, I've kind of learned along the way to kind of just lean on the movies that I rewatch most often from this year, instead of trying to go into, which one is, favorite, or which one is best, or which one is most artistic or speaks to me the most. It's just, look, these are the ones that I watch the most from this year. And this is a really great year. I know that I say that for all these 90s, movies released in, 91 was really tough. But this might be the hardest one so far.
Title of your sex tape. All right. Oh, before I forget, if you're watching us live, you can comment on the post on either YouTube or Facebook, where we are being streamed live, and your comments will pop up, and then we could all see your comments, and then we could all interact. So it's a lot of fun. So make sure you do that if you are interested. So when somebody makes a pick, David, that is not good, you fucking call them out and you say, no se hace. Missy, how did you come up with your selection?
This is also a very hard mountain for me to put together because I have a total of 26 movies from this year that I really really love. So it hurts my body to have to cut it down to four. It's movies that I still watch this day. I would throw them in as my comfort watches. And the one stipulation that I gave myself for this mountain, because there's so many to pick from, just to help my process, I made myself pick one, like no repeat in genres. So each pick has its own genre. I'm not repeating that because otherwise I was never gonna finish. So yeah.
I wonder if I did that. Let's see.
Deej, how did you make your selection?
So, kind of echoing what David and Missy said, I mean, 1994, what a year, you know? And I realized when I picked my list and even my honorable mentions that I have all these movies on DVD. so I have, you know, like you guys, I probably do. I have a lot of DVDs, and I feel that most of my DVDs are from like the 90s. So I'm kind of in the mindset of David. I put aside what was like the Oscar winning, you know, critical acclaim. I mean, some of them are very critically acclaimed, but I just went with what I enjoy the most, what I've watched the most, and all the movies on my list I've probably seen 100 times.
Yeah.
So it was hard because, like Missy said, there was just so many good movies that year. But you know, when it came down to making my list smaller, I knew which ones I wanted to put in there.
Yeah, I gotta echo that. I made this list was made in probably, I'm not exaggerating, a minute and a half. Um, I googled films that were released in 1994, and then I was like, yep, yep, yep.
Hmm.
Oh, there you go. That's number four. There you go. Thanks. All right, and that was it. I'm like fucking done with it. And I'm sure there's gonna be movies that I didn't think about or didn't realize that were 94, but I feel very strongly that my list reflects my viewing habits for movies that were released in 1994. So can't go wrong. I don't think. And this is what I've learned throughout the years of doing these kind of topics. No list is wrong and no list is right, because you're always gonna have movies that are left out that should have been or could have been in there, and you're always gonna be happy with the movies you picked as well. So fuck it. Just go with what I got. All right. For those of you who are listening to the audio version, I gotta write this down. This is the moment where I would typically play the sound effect for number four, but I can't do that because there's a fucking situation going on with Rode, the makers of the soundboard that I use. It's an amazing soundboard, but I can't fucking get the download to download the companion app. I don't know. It's a whole thing. So we are at 8.5 minutes. All right. So I'm gonna delete this. For those of you who are listening to this audio, you'll never hear this part, but I did it. Number four, David. What do you got for your number four, man?
Okay, so this was the hardest one, I think, for me to pick because my numbers 1, 2, and 3 were pretty much solid, and it was just kind of that, okay, so which one am I going to give the boot to? So my number 4 is going to be In the Mouth of Madness, directed by John Carpenter. This is
you love this shit. You're like, you love when we're all like, what the fuck is he talking about?
Okay, so in the Mouth of Madness is a sort of spiritual sequel. It is the close the last movie in what John Carpenter calls his Apocalypse trilogy. The movies plot-wise don't connect, but they all deal with end of the world scenarios. The first of which is probably his most famous, The Thing. Everyone knows The Thing with Kurt Russell, right? So the second movie is Prince of Darkness, again, which is probably more famous than In the Mouth of Madness, which deals with Satan coming and taking over the earth through a portal to hell. In the Mouth of Madness is John Carpenter, who is one of my all-time favorite directors, taking on H.P. Lovecraft and this idea of like ancient evil that has long been here on Earth that we don't understand, that we don't even know is here, um, kind of sweeping and taking over and destroying humanity from the inside out. It is incredibly meta. The whole story is that a writer who is very much like a Stephen King type guy has gone missing, and the newest book that he needs to deliver to his publisher is due. So the publisher sends, who's basically an insurance agent, out to make sure the guy's still alive, so that they can begin the process of filing insurance paperwork on the guy. And throughout the process, he finds out that he is, in fact, living the guy's third book. Or not third book, last book, his latest book, and the whole thing is just so incredibly like reality bending. To take it back to old school, for those longtime Mount Rushmore listeners, this is revolutionary fourth wall breaking. This is
Do you mean Mount.Geekmore? You said Mount Rushmore listeners.
yeah, Mount.Geekmore, whatever the
Okay.
fuck I'm talking about, man.
It's your
You know
fucking
what the hell I
podcast. Your
mean.
face is on the fucking mountain, asshole. Like, you can see it's like whatever it is. I'm like, all right, you paid for the logo. Like, I don't know. You should.
Yeah, I mean this is the horror movie that you want to watch if you want to like just be mind fucked. It's John Carpenter at his absolute zaniest. He just kind of says, I'm going to do whatever I want to do. And at this point, John Carpenter is, just one of these directors that studios let do whatever he wants. It's the mid 90s. He's gone through just the greatest string of hits in the late 70s, through the 80s. And I mean, the guy fucking directed Halloween. What are you going to say to this guy? And he did exactly what he wanted to do with this movie, and it shows. And I think it's all the better for it. And it's a movie that if you've never seen, you don't even have to be a horror movie fan to appreciate this. In fact, it's a little bit more of a thriller than a horror movie. But it's definitely got those horror aspects to it, and it's creepy, and it gets under your skin, and it's fun. It's a lot of fun.
This is probably a good time to remind everybody, including DJ, who hasn't been on. We now have a 5-minute time limit per pick, so this is probably a good time to mention that, because David has not only reached that but cost us listeners in the process.
That's not true.
That's not true. I'm fucking with you. We actually got one more than we had.
You said I had one more minute.
Yeah. But I think you're good. I think you covered it. You talk about anything about the movie. You talked about the director the whole fucking time.
Yeah.
Absolutely not.
Okay.
Well, I feel like I watched this movie once with you, but I don't remember anything about it. So that was actually really wasteful for me to even say out loud. So I'm sorry.
Did you watch this with me once?
I feel like I did, but I don't remember anything about the movie.
So you watched this movie more so than any other than most other movies in '94? Is that what we're led to believe? You watched this movie more so than because I don't know what's on your list, but I know it's not on your list. And by the time we're fucking finished, I'm gonna call you out on this shit and be like, you watched In the Mouth of Madness more so than insert fucking. All right.
Okay.
All right.
Maybe he'll surprise you. You don't know.
I've never seen it, so I'm very sorry.
Yeah, I've never.
Listen, I knew in picking this that it was going to get this sort of reaction, and I mean, honestly, if I gave a fuck what you thought, Neri,
Yeah, no, I don't think you should. I definitely don't think you should change it based upon what I think. I'm just saying. I've never seen it. Like that's same thing that DJ said. I don't know why you gotta call me out on it. The fuck?
Wow, you came at me like, oh, you watch this boy.
I'm asking you an honest question.
I'm actually doing an impression of you, doing an impression of me, doing an impression of you.
But I'm asking you an honest question. Do you think you've watched this movie more so than most other movies in '94?
I mean, I wouldn't have put it on my list otherwise, wouldn't I? That's what I said.
All right, here we go.
It's what I say, booby trap.
All right, Missy, what do you have for your number 4?
It's not a John Carpenter movie for sure. This my number 4, I just like literally 30 seconds ago I committed to it. It would be the movie that checks off the family kid movie for 94, my personal pick, and it's Camp Nowhere. Because, well, first of all, as a kid, how amazing is that idea that you can run away from your parents and create like a Woodstock type of summer camp situation for yourself, unlimited funds, and you just do whatever the hell you want. Like, I want to go on that vacation now. You know what I mean? Like, this movie was such a like, I snuck into the movie theaters to watch this. Bad girl. But it was like such a feel good movie. The cast is pretty much very forgettable with the exception of Christopher Lloyd, who that's my introduction to Christopher Lloyd is this movie, not the Back to the Future movies. And I know that's like sacrilegious. I'm sorry, but that's just my childhood.
I mean, that's not anything you can control.
Isn't Jessica Alba in this movie? Like for like a second?
Jessica Alba. There's a bunch of like uncredited. Let me double check. But I do know that like Jonathan Jackson was on, which he was like the store brand version of Jonathan Taylor Thomas at that time.
The poor man's version.
Yeah, the one, the store brand.
JTT.
Of JTT. There's a bunch of Andrew Keegan, who later went on to be in the 10 Things. He played a douche in 10 Things I Hate About You, but in this movie he plays the bad boy who's like fixing a car to run away. It was super lame. Anyway, have any of you watched Camp Nowhere? Because I feel like okay.
I have not seen it. No.
You haven't, Dave? You haven't seen it either?
No, I've never seen it, and all the kids my age were obsessed with this movie, and I never saw it.
That movie was one of those movies that after I didn't see it in the movie theater. That after it was always like, I don't know, on Showtime or one of those movie channels. It was like always on, especially during the summer.
Yeah, and I just really love the whole concept of it. These kids are like, it's an opportunity. Like now, watching it as an adult, you're watching it. And it's like the kids just want to be kids for one summer, and their parents are like forced. They're at that age where they're forcing them to like do hobbies, like just shit that parents do that don't let kids be kids, which is a message that I always like root for. Like the kids, not the parents being assholes. I don't know if that's clear. But anyway, I just love this movie. It's in my account. I watch it on Saturdays sometimes, and I recommend it. If you guys haven't seen it with your kids, I would recommend. Like, I think it's a safe bet to watch with your kids. So recommend that.
All right, Camp Nowhere. Deej, what do you got for your number 4?
All right. So I think the good thing is that I feel that with David and Missy and me now, we're gonna go with movies that like are not that popular because my fourth pick, my top 3 are super popular movies, and we probably have some of those shared. But for my fourth pick, I love this movie, hence it's my number 4. It's The River Wild with Meryl Streep.
Oh, it's a good movie, man.
I've never seen this.
That movie, whenever it's on, and it's funny because as I said, I have it on DVD, but it's one of those movies that even today, that movie is always on TV. I will stop. You know how there's just some movies that when it's on TV, you watch them.
Yep.
And
Twister.
I will always watch that movie. And what I think it's so interesting about that movie is that that's not a Meryl Streep movie. It's not
so good though. It's so fucking good. Kevin Bacon, dude.
Kevin Bacon.
Wait, so what's it about?
And his most Kevin Baconiest.
So Meryl Streep
Like,
and her husband, they're having like marital problems, and like he's always working, and he doesn't have time for the kids. Blah 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 blah. And then they take time to go river rafting, as one
Okay.
does when they have family problems.
Of
no,
course.
well, no, because Meryl Streep's family grew up in the mountains. They grew up by the river, so that's her thing that she does.
Yeah,
with
she
parents.
used to be a river guide. She
Yeah,
used to be a river guide.
yeah.
So she used to take on all these like crazy falls, and like she was like a badass whitewater river rafter person, right? So she is supposed to have this like family time, but then her husband kind of sells out on her, and he doesn't go, which he ends up saving them. But so they go down the river, and Kevin Bacon and oh my God, what's this other guy's name?
I don't even remember the other guy's name.
John Riley. John Riley's also
John
in that
C.
movie.
Riley, yeah.
Yes, he's
John P. Riley.
Yes,
Funny,
yes.
he said John Riley, and I go, John Riley. Why does that sound kind of familiar?
I'm reading my notes.
John P. Riley, yeah, I get it.
So he's also in the movie. So they're the bad guys, and they're like in the middle of some plot that there is. I don't know. I forget
It's
the
so
police.
funny. They robbed money. There was like a bank or some shit.
There was like a bank robbery, so they need Meryl Streep to take them down the river, and this includes doing like a drop off that's like crazy and whatever. It's one of these.
Her young son is in the river boat too. Is in the raft.
Yeah, and there's also, which I think it was one of his first movies as well, Benjamin Pratt. He plays the park ranger.
Right.
Yeah. They end up killing him.
Come on, Deej, you're such a spoiler. There's two people who told you they haven't seen.
I just said I haven't seen this movie.
I don't really think that his character is a spoiler. Because if you blink, you'll miss him. But anyway, it's just a really fun movie. As I said, it's not a Meryl Streep movie. She's not playing she's not she's usually a character actress. And it's one of those things that
I think she is. I think this is a very well acted part for her. I think the only difference between this and like any other quote unquote Meryl Streep movie is that this is more physical. This
and she did
no acting in it.
She did a lot of her own stunts.
Yeah.
So is it like a family movie? Like it's a.
I would consider it family, like young, like teenager movie.
Yeah, I was gonna say 12, maybe. If your kid's like 12, I think you're good.
I'm not sure what rating it is. Like PG-13.
I have the Wikipedia page up. Hold on a second.
But 94 is those weird years where it's like PG-13 is like some shit that nowadays would be like, no, that's not PG-13.
Actually, can I add a little bit of trivia to see if you guys know? Do you know what movie is the one that started the PG-13?
Oh, David and I know this very well.
Temple of Doom and Gremlins.
Gremlins. And it's funny because this past now in Christmas, I put Gremlins on for my kid, and I hadn't seen Gremlins in a while. I was like, shit.
That's a rough one, bro.
I was like, shit, this movie's like really violent. And like, I remember being like 5 years old and watching that movie, and like my bed sheets were of like Gizmo and all that. And it's really violent. And then I what you guys said, I read up on it, and I'm like, oh, like I see it.
I tried watching that movie once, and then I got to the part where they strung up the dog with Christmas lights, and I'm like, I'm out. And watch this. Yeah.
Go ahead, Missy.
The River Wild has a PG-13 rating.
Yeah. Teenagers. So.
Yeah. But I love that movie. It's a good pick. I saw it in the list of movies that I was looking through, and it was a solid pick. All right. That was DJ's number 4. My number 4. I'm just looking at my list now. I'm just organizing the order now. My number 4 is it's gonna be tough. I'm gonna say Shawshank Redemption is my number 4.
I knew you were gonna have that.
Shawshank.
So do we table it?
All right, if you have it, do you have it later on?
I do have it.
And we table it. So the number 4s are In the Mouth of Madness, Camp Nowhere, River Wild, and Shawshank Redemption. Those are number 4s. Number 3s, let me insert here. 24 minutes. 24 minutes. All right, 24 minutes. What are your number 3s, David?
My number 3 is going to be Pulp Fiction.
Nice.
Good one.
That's one of the ones that I was like, it hurt me not to put on because I fucking love Tarantino. But
yeah, there were three that came to me right away, and those are my top three. And then the others, I kind of just like, oh wow, that came out in '94. Oh man, that came out in '94 as well. And so that's where like the dilemma with my number 4 came. But this was always going to be on my mountain. And as far as which, hang on, before I say this, let me look at my list. No, I can't say that either. I mean, this movie is. I can't say it's my favorite Tarantino movie because that's got to go to Inglourious Bastards. But fuck if it isn't like just perfect, you know. Everything from the style of storytelling, you know, the idea of, oh, we're gonna Tarantino it, you know, where, you know, it's gonna start. I mean, yeah, I mean, he did it in Reservoir Dogs, but I mean, to such a greater effect in this movie, where you've got like 3 different storylines coming together all at once. I mean, the to map this thing out, to edit this thing, this always will be his magnum opus. It doesn't matter how great another movie he comes out with is, and they're all fucking fantastic. This will always be it, you know. I mean, there's nothing that I can say about Pulp Fiction that hasn't already been like beaten to the fucking dirt, you know, into a pulp.
So you wouldn't be wrong. You wouldn't be wrong in saying it, man. Like all the accolades are well deserved, I think.
Yeah, this is one of those where, you know, I obviously being 7 years old when it came out, I did not see this when it came out. I saw this much later. It already had the stellar reputation that it had, and I remember watching the, you know, that scene with Sam Jackson in the diner, you know, that everyone quotes, with, you know, the bad motherfucker, and I was like, just my jaw dropped to the floor. Like, this is as good as everyone says it is. You know, the whole idea of like, you never fucking find out what's in the briefcase. You don't fucking need to know. It doesn't fucking matter. You know, that's such an old school, like Alfred Hitchcock thing to do. Like, you know, it's a fucking plot device. It doesn't matter, because what ultimately matters in this movie is the dialogue and the gorgeous violence in this movie. You know, I always feel weird saying that, but Tarantino has a way of filming violence that makes it beautiful. Absolutely beautiful.
And you're in.
And
no
yeah,
matter how fucked up it is, because for Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, when I was like, is this motherfucker gonna make me watch Sharon Tate die? Like, is that gonna? But I wasn't leaving. I was like, am I about to watch this shit? But I wasn't going anywhere because that's how good it is.
yeah.
And it brought us back John Travolta.
Yes, it did.
True. I mean,
very briefly, because then he ruined it with what was it, Battlefield Earth?
Battlefield Earth.
Yeah,
but I mean, he was already back because of Look Who's Talking. But I get what you're saying. But
this is a really good movie. The dialogue is so good, like
yeah.
impeccable dialogue. I remember when I first watched it, I was 11 in '94, so I also did not watch it when it came out. But when the first time I watched it, I think this was my first Tarantino movie that I ever watched, and it just, I was in because it was very intriguing. The dialogue was very intriguing, but I didn't know how he was going to connect everything because it seemed very like a big puzzle that the pieces did not match. Mm-hmm. And then when it finally comes together, I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love
it. I mean, I didn't even know that Bruce Willis was in this movie when I started watching it, because no one ever mentions Bruce Willis. Yeah. They're always talking about Sam Jackson. They're talking about John Travolta, you know, Uma Thurman. They're not talking about Bruce Willis. And by the time he comes in, I'm like, fucking Bruce Willis is in this, and he's playing Daredevil's dad. That's so fucking cool, you know. I fucking love this movie.
Yeah,
it's so good. I can watch it again and again, and I often do.
Yeah, this movie's fantastic. I love everything that you guys said. You know, touche. Yeah, it's like fantastic. One of my favorite Tarantino movies. I would probably put it in the Rushmore of Tarantino movies for
Mhm.
myself. But it's fucking great. Um, all right. So Pulp Fiction.
We should do that mountain because he definitely has more than 8.
Yeah, but he has 9. I mean, it's
Uh-huh.
gonna be a lot of tables.
So what?
Just don't rank them and just talk about it. Like just be
Yeah, I
like,
know.
so
We
guys.
could, we could we could do that. We could just do a Tarantino retrospective.
Yeah.
Yeah. Uh, this wasn't. I saw Reservoir Dogs when it first came out. This is one of the very few times that having older brothers came in handy. I guess benefited me because when I saw Pulp Fiction, I knew like this is the guy that did Reservoir Dogs, and I remember, and this shouldn't come as a surprise to anybody, but I remember I couldn't read the word Reservoir Dogs because when I said reservoir, I was like was uh,
Reservoir.
reservoir and I couldn't remember, and I remember my brothers had to teach me like, oh, that's reservoir. I'm like, okay, let's whatever, if you say so, fuck it, I'll say reservoir. That's not reservoir to me, but I'll fucking say reservoir.
You guys just want me to say it wrong in front of people, don't you?
So Reservoir Dogs was my first Tarantino movie because of my older brothers, and I mean, these are the same people who fucking told me in kindergarten that Santa Claus wasn't real, and I went back to class saying Santa Claus wasn't real. So you take the good with the bad. They
You were
killed
that kid.
they killed Santa Claus for me, but they did introduce me to Tarantino. So I mean, good with the bad.
That's an even trade? Question
Uh,
mark?
yeah, I think that's an even trade. I remember me literally being in 7th grade and telling people about Reservoir Dogs, and they don't know what the fuck I was talking about. I'm like, no, bro, it's really fucking good. And then it goes, and everybody's Mr. Pink, and then Mr. Pink has a problem because he doesn't like the color pink. Like I remember having that conversation as a 7th grader, and not to be that guy that's a hipster, like I fucking heard about it first, but I remember like, yeah, that was really cool. So sure, you killed, Santa at Christmas for me, but that's fine. I mean, whatever. Let's. All right. So Pulp Fiction. Missy, what's your number 3?
So my number 3 is also a fan favorite, I think. And I think this one checks off like the accolades blanket. Like I've never met somebody that doesn't like this movie, and it's Forrest Gump.
Table.
Oh, table.
Yeah,
Oh,
I figured,
that's a good
but
movie.
I could not. I figured.
Would have been my list had it not been for my number 3. That's a great movie. I love that movie. Deej, what do you got for number 3?
So my number 3 is probably going to be tabled. I make no apologies. I freaking love it, and it's Speed.
Table. Stay tuned.
This would be the only. Like I was like, when you said Speed, I was like, who would table Speed? I go, wait. wait for it.
I was in between Speed going to my number 4, and I was like, you know what? I'm not gonna have to worry about this because I know it's one of Missy's favorites.
Excuse me, I'm a mysterious person, okay?
How dare you, sir?
Sure you are.
well, when Neri called me because he's like, "Hey, do you want to record tonight? We're doing, the topic," and he goes, "Yeah." So I figured this would be a great opportunity for you to talk about blank, and I was like, "Shut up."
Well, it's funny because in the chat when we came up with the topic, me and David said, "Oh yeah, you should ask Missy because this is the year that blank came out." Like insert movie title here, and then the opponent goes, "That tracks. That really, really tracks." And then I said, "Hey, how fucking dare you?" And then the next message was, "There, I defended my friend. Let's move on."
Let me ask you guys a question though, since we're in good company here. Do you think though? I mean, I guess this is a bigger conversation, but like we all all of us said that when we were looking at the list of movies, there was so many to pick from. Do you think that is if we were to do the same thing but for like movies in the 2000s or like 2010s, do you think that would still be the case?
Well, we typically do movies, top 10 movies of the year. Woo Bro, What's Up Bro usually does top 10 movies of the year. I don't know if we're gonna do it for 2020 because there were so few movies released in theaters, and it was not the same year. But I will say I remember doing it for movies that came out in 2000, either 18 or 19. I believe it was 18. And I remember saying, like, we've done it for 8 years in a row. Every year, Woobro has done a top 10. And I remember saying out loud in the episode for, I think it was for movies in 2018, that I was kind of disappointed. There weren't as many as it wasn't difficult to pick this year. It wasn't
Well,
as
because I think that if we take it year by year, we can all obviously come up with a handful of 4 or 5 movies
yeah,
that we absolutely loved. But the thing with 1994, and I feel it's the thing with most of the 90s or even 80s, is that again there was just so many. Like when I was looking through this, I was like, how am I going to narrow this down to
Yeah.
4? Because you're
yeah.
talking about like iconic level movies,
Yeah.
I think it's
Um,
what happened with the 80s and 90s. I think it was like a renaissance of these filmmakers, such as Tarantino coming on the scene. In
Yeah.
the 80s, we had Steven Spielberg coming on. Like we had these, I get it, late 70s, early 80s, but it's like one of these like renaissance of the film industry where you had these directors who were later on become these iconic film directors, and they got their start in these decades. So I think that that has a lot to do with it. I mean, 90s gave birth to a whole like, and we'll talk about this later on when Missy brings up that Blank movie we were talking about. There's like a whole genre of independent film. Like 90s had independent film. That independent film genre like was massive in the 90s. Kevin Smith came on the scene. Like all these movies where people were like, hey, I don't necessarily have to have a New York, NYU diploma, film degree to be able to fucking make movies that are good. I think that's
But
what
do you,
helped.
do you do you guys think that a lot of it, especially with movies in the 2000s, has to do that like now I feel we're in like franchise fatigue.
Yeah,
Like
it's
A
studio.
hundred.
And
Yeah,
reboots.
way more into studio films now than we were into. Quentin Tarantino is an independent director, dude. I mean, he made Reservoir Dogs. Like I think it was like $8,000. It was some crazy number, and a lot of that paycheck came from him doing an episode of Golden Girls. He did where he was playing Elvis Presley. Like these are crazy stories where you hear. And nowadays, yeah, you're right. I think it's a lot more studio based movies now, where it's like they just want a bigger buck, and it's action films. Like I think that, you know what I mean. That
yeah,
has taken the, because nobody goes to the movies anymore, because we could download it, so nobody goes to the movie anymore for a movie. Like look at a few years ago, the movie with it's called The Judge, with Robert Downey Jr. and fuck, what's his name, David, Robert Duvall.
Mhm.
And the movie was a fantastic
Yeah.
piece of acting, fantastic piece of fucking script writing. It was amazing. It had fucking Iron Man in it, but nobody went to go watch that movie because fucking Robert Downey Jr. wasn't shooting lasers out of his hand.
yeah.
It's one
Well,
of
and you,
those things
you
where
mentioned you mentioned action movies, and the '90s is often credited with killing the action movie because, like you
I,
mentioned, you mentioned Speed. I mean, Speed is one of the last rated R action movies
yeah,
until you get to like more or less modern times, because studios start realizing you slap a PG-13 rating on something, you're going to make a hell of a lot more money
funny, yeah.
than you are putting an R rating on it. And so you start getting this slew of like soft action movies
Eh,
where
eh,
like the it's just the thrill of it isn't really there, so by the time you get to The Rock, and like it really doesn't exist anymore, and you're getting edgy stuff. I mean, Michael Bay only made one rated R movie, I think, after that, which was fucking Bad
pain
Boys.
and gain, pain and gain, bro.
Well, yeah, I mean, but that's again much more recent.
Yeah,
Throughout the whole '90s, I mean, he was really doing that soft action stuff.
but I and then you got it. There's a point in time. You know what killed the hardcore action movies with Matrix, when they started doing CGI, because they were like, oh, we could do this CGI shit, and we don't have to get like people actually jumping off a fucking bus that's on fire. We could actually just put it into a computer, and it's not the same kind of action movie, I don't think. But anyways, we digress. We digress. So you guys left off Pulp Fiction, Forrest Gump, and Speed. My number three might just be the strongest number three that I've ever had in any mountain, because this movie is both, it's just it's a fucking masterpiece, and I say that with zero fucking qualms. This it's Legends of the Fall. and I fucking absolutely love this movie. DJ, why are you laughing? You don't like this movie?
I'll let you finish.
I absolutely fucking love Legends of the Falls. It's Brad Pitt at his Brad Pittiest. His hair was gorgeous. Oh, sweet Jesus.
Mary, do you know my son's name?
Is it Tristan?
It's Tristan.
Yeah, of course, it's Tristan. Yeah, it's but it's so great. I mean, it's I love this
Dave
movie.
quit.
Thank God. And then so I don't know, it's just a joke. But everything about this movie, the cinematography is stunning. I think its cinematography even got nominated for an Oscar, if I'm not mistaken. The cinematography is stunning. The acting is just, I mean, between Brad Pitt, Anthony Quinn, and Anthony Hopkins, is just so fucking good. The level of the story between brothers and family and between the father and sons, it's just fucking.
We get a grown-up Elliot.
We get a grown up. Yeah, what? Who's Elliot?
From E.T.
From
Oh,
ET.
that's right. He wasn't. That was him. Fuck, I didn't even realize that was him. You're right.
Yeah.
I just saw ET for the first time like 3 months ago, bro. Like 8 months ago, probably. Like right when the quarantine started. It's the first time I saw it from beginning to end. Like I had seen bits and pieces, but I never saw the whole fucking thing.
But how
Dave's
can,
face is up.
but you're you. How can that be the case?
I know. I remember even telling David, I'm like, hey, have you guys seen ET? This fucking shit's really good. I think it's probably gonna get awards. I mean,
A couple.
Hey guys, have you heard of this thing Reddit?
yeah. That's basically what I was 8 months ago. Like this fucking ET movie is really good. Swear to God, same time frame. I was like, you guys see Pinocchio? That's fucking really good, man. But yeah, I love Legends of the Falls. I think it's a phenomenal movie. And I'm a sucker for good cinematography, and that movie has just chef's kiss of cinematography. So there you go.
I agree with everything you said. I do not like the movie. The movie is so. It's a good movie. I'm not saying this because I think it's a bad movie. It's a good movie, and I think that also Aidan Quinn, like everybody talks about, like Brad Pitt and Anthony Hopkins. Aidan Quinn was amazing that movie. Like the end when he says, I did everything right, but they still preferred you or they chose you. Like, I just think that it's so heavy on the drama. Like it's just so heavy. Like nobody's ever happy in that movie. Like
no, it's definitely not. It's definitely not. You sound like me when I talk about Les Mis. I'm like, fuck, everybody was just sad. Like,
but this was like one tragedy over another. Like Elliot, gets killed and he has to carve out his heart, and then the whole thing with the girl that she's in love with Tristan, but she ends up with.
That's one of my favorite scenes. Me and my brother do that to each other every once in a while when we say crazy shit, right? When we say shit that the other person doesn't agree with. My brother and I, we do this. There's one scene where Brad Pitt, Aiden tells him something, and Brad Pitt, I'm not gonna ruin. I'm not gonna spoil what he says, and then Brad Pitt says, "I would allow you to say that one time because you love her. Once you say that again, we are no longer brothers." And like me and my brother to this day, we will fucking say that. We said something to. I remember one time I was like, "Oh, I don't know, maybe Jim Carrey's not that funny," and he was like, "I'll allow you to say that once because you're my brother." Well, you say that one more time. We are no longer.
I forget. At the end, he leaves in a boat, right? Like Jon Snow, like Arya. I mean, they leave in a boat.
Nope.
Okay.
I'm not gonna ruin it because I'm interested in Missy specifically watching this movie. Because
you haven't seen it, Missy?
No.
No.
And that movie was.
I feel like it's gonna be like he's dreamy and shit, and there's probably like a love something, and I don't know if I have
just
the
told you that
bandwidth for that.
But I will say that movie, I remember when it came out, it was really popular.
Well, because Brad Pitt was like popping off at this time.
Shit. Yeah, I'm telling you, it's Brad Pitt in his most Brad Pittiest.
Well, I don't know, I haven't seen it, but I would say that I would disagree with that statement. But I guess when you have a Brad Pitt mountain, we could argue about that.
I mean, but I think this is his first big blockbuster where he started.
Yeah, but
like that would make it like.
I think it's his most Brad Pittiest too.
Yeah,
more than Gilbert Grape.
Brad Pitt was in Gilbert Grape. That's
Leonardo DiCaprio.
No, not Gilbert Grape. What the fuck am I thinking?
You're getting your dreamboats fucking messed up.
What's the one? Hang on, I'm thinking of one.
Dreamboats messed up. That's
I am.
It's true.
This happens every time I
Talk about a good-looking white dude.
Yeah.
They all look the same, bro. I don't know what to tell you.
The fuck am I thinking of?
I also think that in that movie, Brad Pitt you said it, Neri, acted really well. And, it's one of those things that it took him, 25 years to get an Academy Award,
Yeah.
Meet Joe Black. That's what I'm thinking of.
Yeah, it's a
Oh
good
no,
one,
Meet
too.
Joe Black was 99, I think. Something
Yeah, I
like
know.
that.
No, but he means
98.
it, he means if it was more. So, Missy, quick question: do you like Meet Joe Black?
I love Meet Joe Black.
So Meet Joe Black is way heavier than Legends of the Fall. Not by much. I think they're both very heavy films.
It's like right here.
I agree with Deej in the sense of these are very heavy movies, and it's very few like positives as far as like what's going on in the story. But I think that there's a lot of beauty in all of that, and I agree. I'm with you. Like I don't disagree with Deej at all what he said. Like that's all. It's a very heavy film.
Okay.
However, with that said, so is Meet Joe Black, and if you like that movie, you should be fine with watching.
I mean, in Legends of the Fall, and I'm going to be vague, so I don't give it away for Missy. The one moment where Brad Pitt is somewhat happy, some bootleggers,
yeah,
ruin it.
Yeah. But I think that was the whole message of the thing is like and then at the end, the Indian talking, let me rephrase that. I'm sorry, the Native American talking, because we can't say that anymore. The Native American talking, and but that's what they called them in the movie. What the fuck? I can't. Anyway.
Who yelled at you? Calm
David
down.
wagged his
I
finger.
wagged a finger.
Oh, that's what happened. Okay.
Missy was looking down, and Missy was like, "I didn't say a fucking goddamn
I was
thing."
like, eat a stick. I did not attack you.
Anyway, Legends of the Fall is my number 4, man. My number 3. I'm sorry.
That's a good pick.
I think this one is Shawshank. I mean, to have Shawshank as my number 4 is like these are the two greatest films to not be number 1. I think.
But not be number
Yeah,
one.
that's a pretty good point there.
Pulp Fiction, Forrest Gump, Speed, and Legends of the Falls. I don't remember if it's Legends of the Falls or Legends of the Fall. Am I adding the S because I'm Hispanic?
Yes,
think
you
I
are,
think-
because I'm looking at IMDb and it's singular. It's not plural.
It's Legends of the Fall.
Yeah,
Oh, I've been saying it wrong all these years.
because we're Hispanic, bro.
Yeah,
We're
because
Hispanic, we throw
you
the S.
also have the Latins.
We throw the S.
Valentine's Day.
Grab the shares. All right, man.
Shares. Just
Man, our threes as a whole could have been number ones, and that would have been solid, I think.
Legit,
Yeah.
legit. I
Yeah.
agree with that.
Sure.
All right. Moving on.
Round 2.
Dose, the sequel to Uno.
All right, David. What is your number 2?
All right, so I struggled with which to put at number 2 and which to put at number 1. And what I ended up deciding was my number 2, I watched much more often when the movie came out. And this was a movie I saw in theaters when it came out. But my number 1, I watch much more often now. So that's why it's number 1. And my number 2 is True Lies.
nice.
Nice.
So,
That was a contender.
yeah, True
I would
Lies.
watch it more often if they fucking sold it on digital.
I have it digital, but it's on Vudu. It's not on iTunes.
That we're not talking about the same thing.
Yeah, well,
I'm a bit of a snob, iTunes snob over here.
to be honest, that is one of the reasons why I haven't seen it as often, because it is not available on Blu-ray, and because of a weird sort of glitch in Vudu's system, it was available for sale for like a day, and so I picked it up, and so I've seen it a couple of times since I've picked it up, and fuck, it still holds up, man.
Good
It
movie.
is so fucking good.
Jessica Alba. Awesome.
Guys, it's streaming on Prime Video. in
Oh,
case you wanted to
well,
watch
there you
it.
go. Yeah, I mean, it also left an impression on me as a kid. I had seen many Schwarzenegger movies up until that point, but that was the first Schwarzenegger movie I had seen in theater. And so obviously that left an impression on me with Jamie Lee Curtis and Schwarzenegger. You know, I mean, he's fucking Arnold, man. You know, he's fucking Arnie for a reason.
Would
And
you say he's the most Arniest in this film?
I feel like, yeah.
I'm not saying his biggest role because that's obviously Terminator, but
it's obviously Terminator, but I feel like it's between Commando and this one.
Excuse me, I would say Kindergarten Cop is his signature role.
It's
the
not
first
a two. No, that's
First half
it's
hour.
not a
The first
Tuma.
half hour of Kindergarten Cop. You know, when he kills a hooker and he fucking he's a drug dealer. You know, the good family film that was
Yeah,
Kindergarten Cop.
totally worth for somebody to go watch in the movie theaters
You know
at
what?
10.
I correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel that this was a bit of I guess a bit, not that he had gone anywhere, but a bit of a comeback for him because the Last Action Hero, which I believe was what he did before, that movie
Yep.
flopped.
Yeah, flopped hard.
Yeah, it wasn't a big success for him. But previous to that had been, I think, Terminator 2. I don't know if he did anything in 1992, but 1991 was T2. 93 was Kindergarten Cop.
Yeah.
No, 93 was Last Action Hero.
Mhm.
91 was Terminator 2, and 90 was Kindergarten Cop. I
Right.
was 7.
So he had one slip up. I don't know if that's a comeback. I don't know if you
Yeah,
want
I
Right,
certainly
but
wouldn't call it a comeback.
But I feel that like back then for these like mega huge larger than life stars, which we don't have like that now, like one slip up is like a big deal, you know.
it was a big deal because look up until that point, like the movies he had before that, Kindergarten Cop, Total Recall, even Twins, these movies all debuted at number one. Like they
Yeah.
all came out at number one. So for him to have 4 or 5 hits in a row, and by hits, I don't just mean they made money. I mean they debuted at number one, which is another different level of like, yeah, you could have a hit that was that number 3 in the box office. That's good, but when you have a number 1 hit in the box office, that's a big deal. So yeah, I think I get what you're saying. I don't think that's a comeback though. I think you know what I mean.
But it was
Last-
certainly a return to form.
Yes, a return.
After-
And don't get me wrong. And right after True Lies, he did Junior, so he fell right back into that
Yeah.
fucking in that pit.
And
Right back in the banana
up,
peel.
he followed that up with Eraser.
Eraser.
So
Vanessa Williams.
Well, yeah, I mean the mid to late '90s was not really kind to Schwarzenegger or any action star.
And then Batman and Robin. So he really didn't have a good ending to that. Fuck, I know you do. That movie sucked. And
I
so-
know, but it's because it's an accidental comedy. That's why I love it.
Yeah.
All right. So
Wait, you think Batman and Robin is an accidental comedy?
Yeah, they meant
Yeah.
that was
Oh,
supposed to
100%.
be an action movie, but it's
Yeah.
a comedy. That shit
when
is
we
a
do the
comedy.
Mount Rushmore of '97 movies, we know what's gonna be on Missy's Mountain.
George,
No,
George Clooney.
All right. George Clooney wasn't even the worst part about that movie. True Lies, fantastic. I love that movie, man. I love
Yeah,
it.
That's a really great
and
pick.
being all of us here growing up in Miami, the fact that so much of this takes
The
place
7 Mile
so
Bridge.
so close to home, not in Miami but so close to home is just like fucking amazing,
So
that
this day, when I go to Key West, I always go, that is the part that they blew up for the movie of the
Yeah.
old bridge.
That's awesome.
What I love about this movie nobody's mentioned is Tia Carrera. Whew,
Oh yeah.
Ooh,
Oh yeah.
huge fan.
yeah.
Yeah, and actually, I would like to point out that Arnold Schwarzenegger is actually my third favorite James Bond. Just want to put that out there. Better than Roger Moore as a secret agent. He is better than
What are you
Timothy
talking
Dalton
about,
as a
sir?
secret agent. This is basically a James Bond movie, and
Oh, okay.
it's
Oh.
better. It's better than almost all of them. All right, and this is coming from a Bond fan.
I will tell you, as a fellow Bond fan, you guys probably know, David and I are pretty. James Bond is my favorite franchise. I'm slightly obsessed with James Bond. I have a Bond wall in my house.
Okay.
I agree with what you're saying, David, with the Roger Moore movies.
Yeah.
All right. So Missy, what do you have for your number 3?
So no, isn't this number 2?
Number 2. I'm sorry. I apologize. You're right. Number 2.
Oh, sorry, did I space out again?
Sorry, no, my fault.
So my number 2, actually, it was a struggle because it was between my pick and True Lies, and my number 2 is Speed. And so now we can talk about DJ. So this movie was, I feel like Yeah, because this movie came out before Bad Boys, and I know that Bad Boys, like as far as the action genre, was a huge deal for like my movie watching self. But this movie was so awesome, and it's so rewatchable. Like I think, Dave, we watched it at your house a couple weeks ago. I mean, a couple months ago. I had my back to the TV, and I was quoting the fucking lines that were coming up next. Like I just love this movie. And Dave kept looking at me like he's like, "What?" And then the line would come out. Like, oh, okay. Keanu Reeves. Name me a dreamier role for him. Like he's such a dreamboat in this movie. I fucking love this guy. In general, but in this movie, he's like so cute.
That shot of his bicep as he's pulling himself up onto the truck,
Dave!
and he's got the gasoline glistening all over him. Oh my stars and garters!
Can you please step off my notes? Thank you. Yeah, no, there's like not a negative thing about this movie. I can say the one like Dennis Hopper. Dennis Hopper plays a phenomenal villain because he's not like an out of this world bad guy. Like this guy could just be sitting next to you on the bus, for lack of a better place. I love that
I see what you did there. Bus. I got it.
The chemistry between Sandra Bullock and Keanu Reeves is awesome. I'm a huge Sandra Bullock fan, and I just love this movie. The storyline was great. I'm drawing a blank, but I love him too. Shit, give me a second.
The guy from Ferris Bueller?
No, Jeff Daniels. Jeff Daniels. Yeah. Also, this movie, another movie that came out this year. I mean, the same year that was, I feel, gave him a better platform as far as like his acting. But for sure, as the best, like the role of best friend, you're rooting for him. I'm like, when Harry dies, man. So there's really nothing like I could talk about this movie. I could probably talk like as much about this movie as my number one pick because it's just so good. I didn't see it in the theaters. I saw it on one of my Blockbuster nights. For you kids who are too cool to remember to know what that is, I'm sorry because that was the shit back in the day.
Not any of us, for sure.
I fucking worked at Blockbuster.
And so everybody's seen the movie here, right?
Of course, yeah.
Okay. I pointed something out to Dave that I don't think bothers anyone or really anyone has picked up. But you know, in the morning after the party, in the beginning of the movie, where he goes to get his coffee. And
he leaves the coffee on the fucking car.
Yes. So my question is, every time I watch that scene, I'm always distracted because when he runs back to the car, DJ, have you ever noticed that when he runs back to the car, he takes off and the fucking coffee cup doesn't move? How did they do that? That doesn't make sense.
I wonder the story on that. If that was like a blooper.
Yeah, because I feel like that was like the Starbucks can and remember like the Starbucks cup in the Game of Thrones thing. Like it was just a mistake. So I would love to get solve that mystery, but I cannot for the life. Like every single time that I watch that movie, I'm like, how the fuck did they stay there? What happened? So yeah, I love this movie, and this was Sandra Bullock's like big breakout.
Yeah.
And I love it. So
you know what bothers me about that scene is the fact that he didn't stop the car and then get the coffee and then come back inside. I think that would have been hilarious.
He was chasing.
He just overpaid for that coffee. He's on a top salary.
Oh my god!
Right?
What I love about this movie and like the trajectory of Speed is that I feel that Speed literally came out of nowhere. Like. I feel that that's a movie that on paper you didn't expect it to be the hit that it was, because Sandra Bullock, as you said, was relatively unknown at that time. Keanu Reeves was known for Bill and Ted and Point Break and what was it, My Own Private Idaho and a few other movies, but none of those movies he was like the main person or was a huge like hit. I mean, Bill and Ted was big, but he was playing a silly character. So here comes Keanu Reeves, and an action star, exactly, with a co-headline, like leading lady who nobody knew about being trapped in a bus, like, and the movie doesn't really have, except for when they jump over the highway that isn't built. It doesn't really have that many special effects, and it's just freaking
Wait,
phenomenal.
Are you saying that didn't happen?
Huh?
Are you saying it didn't? What do you mean special effects? Are you saying that?
Well, I mean, it's a simple movie. I mean, there were a couple of, well, the plane did blow up. Blow up.
Well, so I think Dave, you were the one that had said that the action, like, no, I think it was Neri, that when the Matrix came out, it kind of killed the action genre in the traditional sense, where people just figured they could CGI a bunch of stuff, and this was a very organic action movie.
Yeah.
And
I don't think it had that many special effects.
I don't think so either.
I
think that big jump, and then when the lady dies trying to get off,
trying to follow the middle of the thing.
Those are like two of the biggest, and the plane one that exploded.
How fucked up would it be? How much would it mess with your mind, Missy, if they go, oh yeah, the other special effect was a coffee cup? That wasn't really like, how much would that?
we spent so much money on post production, but I remember, we all remember how popular that movie was, and again, I feel it came out of nowhere. Like, nobody.
It had a relatively small budget for an action movie. It had $30 million dollar budget, and it made 350. So. It broke even and then some.
It made so much money that they thought it was a good idea to make a sequel on a fucking cruise ship.
That sequel doesn't exist. Okay? We have all agreed that it doesn't exist.
Actually, I do think it exists because I love that sequel for all the wrong reasons.
Like Batman and Robin.
Right. Yeah. It's like okay, let's, it's actually, now that we're talking about it, just as I think I was saying that Speed was very, you said organic, they didn't overdo it on the on the big, like, bang. Like in Speed 2, it's like, okay, let's totally crash the cruise ship into a town because that is what happens.
I think even Sandra Bullock has gone on record to be like, how did we make a movie about called Speed on a cruise ship?
I forget. He just didn't want to do it, right?
Well, they should have called it Nuts.
He apparently had, like, that bullshit, like, Hollywood scheduling thing, but essentially it was that he didn't like the script, so he didn't want to do it. But
so I was just reading up on this here. Apparently, because you were talking about budgets, the original villain was supposed to be Gene Hackman. But it would have been fantastic. They couldn't afford him because of the cost of the special effect of keeping the coffee cup on the car. So they ended up going with Dennis Hopper.
So Dennis Hopper is literally the poor man's Gene Hackman.
You're an asshole.
Literally the poor man's Gene Hackman.
I need
hilarious.
That's so fucking great. Yeah, that's great. I think, all right, we got to wrap it up. We're spending way too much time on this pick. All right.
Wait, do I say my number 2 then?
Yeah, what's your number 2?
My number 2, this may be tabled, is Forrest Gump.
Tabled.
Run, Forrest, run.
So we know that shit's getting on the mountain.
All right, my number 2 is one of the funniest movies of all time, and it's Ace Ventura. And I have zero qualms about picking this movie. I love this movie. I have the movie poster framed in my house, in my living room, full-size movie poster, and I've seen this movie a billion times, and it fucking makes me laugh every single time. And one of the few movies where the sequel, I believe, is better than the original. I will say that. However, the original is so strong. I fucking love this movie. And if you see the director's cut, it's so fucking great too, where he goes to Finkel's house, and there's a whole thing where he goes into the bar before he gets to Finkel's house to ask for directions to get to Finkel's house. He goes into a bar, and then he says, does anybody know where I could find Ray Finkel? And like, it's like a biker bar, and like the fucking music stops, like, and all that shit there. And they were like, are you a friend of his? And then he was like, yes. And then they all like fucking point like broken beer bottles, and people break their fucking the pool cues, and like they're all like, so you see the shot of like all this shit. He goes, I'm sorry, I have the opposite of what you mean disease. And he does this thing. He goes, oh, you guys want to play? And he takes off his fucking contact lens, and he breaks it over the fucking counter, and you see the little contact lens with a little jagged edge, and he's like, huh? Anyone? Who wants some? Huh? Who wants? And it's so fucking hysterical, man. man. I love that whole like these are deleted scenes that I've seen a billion times, and I just fucking laugh every single time. It's so good.
Is that
But
your favorite Jim Carrey movie?
no,
Awesome.
uh,
It's a Majestic, right?
I do like the Majestic. I think I think it's underrated, but
in his pre
Truman
like
Show or bust, man.
before he turned into the drama, he leaned more towards the drama range. This is like peak
oh, sorry.
Jim Carrey, right?
Yeah, I mean, this was very
I'd
much
Like
I
the
think-
Jim Carreyest of Jim Carrey movies up to that point, for sure.
Well, there was nothing. There was like Once Bitten. Like, what did you have before this? Like, you had like there was so nothing. Like,
Okay,
Ace Ventura
sure,
with his-
I guess.
but yeah,
Yeah,
I
good
would
too.
love
I would say that, Missy, the Jim Carrey, I would say it's Liar Liar.
Liar Liar is one of the good
Yeah,
ones.
Liar Liar is
Because
fantastic.
I feel that Ace Ventura is what made him a movie star.
Yeah.
Ace Ventura made a movie star, but you have those 4 movies: Ace Ventura, Dumb and Dumber, The Mask, which I'm not a big fan of, but and
The
then
Mask came out this year too.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
And
there's
Dumb and Dumber.
all these 4 movies were like he could do no wrong for. I mean, that's what made him a $20 million movie kind of actor.
He's so fucking
But
cool.
no, my favorite Jim Carrey was probably Dumb and Dumber. I mean, I'll probably have to think about it, but that's a good
Truman
mountain.
Show.
That's a good mountain.
Yep.
Truman Show's phenomenal. All right. Oh
This
no,
was a
no,
strong contender for my
no. I know what my favorite Jim Carrey movie is. The one where the fucking dreams where he fuck, I'm having a brain fart on the title with Kate Winslet.
Eternal Sunshine.
Eternal
That was
Oh,
that's
yes.
That's to me,
Yes.
yeah.
It's really good.
Yes.
Deej,
Yeah.
Eternal Sunshine. You don't think it's deep? You don't think it's too deep? But Legends of the Fall is what does it to you. That's what. Okay, I just want to make sure. Okay, that's cool. That's fine. That's fine. Eternal Sunshine,
Listen,
is the
he
fucking
only
moodiest movie of all time.
he only busts balls if he likes you. Just know that.
If you guys ever do a Kate Winslet mountain, let me know.
Oh my god, that would be an amazing mountain.
Panic, and then yeah, I think we could do a mountain.
Because she has done so many
So
movies.
Neri's producing that fucking mountain, jerk.
Titanic VHS cassette 1, Titanic VHS cassette 2.
No.
How dare you, David? How dare you? There, I stood up for you. All right. Our number 2s were True Lies, Speed, Forrest Gump, and Ace Ventura. Ready for number 1.
Round 1. This is your last chance. After this, there is no turning back.
Do it! Do it! Come on! Come on!
David?
Are we gonna
Yes,
do HMs?
I'm gonna go into my honorable mentions.
Oh shit! Oh fuck! I'll go
So The Lion King is one that like just missed it by like that much. I haven't seen it much as an adult. As a kid, I used to watch this all the time. If Link was a bigger fan of the movie, I would watch it more now. I'm gonna go Star Trek Generations. This is a fantastic Star Trek movie, but I think that the unceremonious death of Captain Kirk brings it down a notch. Not capable of being number 4. The Professional is so fucking good.
The Natalie Portman one?
Yes.
Oh, yes.
I still haven't seen it.
Oh man, you need to watch this movie.
Neri, you surprise me sometimes. Like,
you know.
And
keep you on your toes, buddy. Keep you on your toes.
Clear and Present Danger is another one that I love so much.
I thought this was gonna be on your list, man.
Yeah,
how is this not on your list?
I really truly love this movie, but I don't rewatch it as often as you might think. In fact, I don't rewatch any of the Harrison Ford, Jack Ryan movies as much as you might think, because when I end up rewatching a Jack Ryan movie, it's usually The Hunt for Red October.
So let me ask you a question, and I'm just asking an honest question. I'm not trying to fucking get a rise out of you, nothing. You watch your number 4 more so than Clear and Present Danger? You rewatch it more?
Now
that's just surprising me, just because I know how much you like Jack Ryan movies. So
I saw Clear and Present Danger well before I saw In the Mouth of Madness, but since I've seen In the Mouth of Madness, I've watched it more than Clear and Present Danger.
Okay.
In the last, I don't know, just to throw out a number, 5 years, I may have seen Clear and Present Danger once or twice, but In the Mouth of Madness, I've seen probably once a year.
Okay. That just surprised me because of I know how big of a Jack Ryan fan you are.
Oh, I love it. You know, that's why, like you said, you're never going to be happy with this list, because I would be happy if Clear and Present Danger was on my mountain, but I would also be happy if The Professional was on my mountain.
Mm.
The Professional
Alright.
is so good. So
Missy,
good.
what do you have for your honorable mentions?
Wes Craven's New Nightmare. Oh, Missy, great fucking pick. I fucking love that one.
Huh? Wait, what did you say?
Did you pick
Wes Craven's New Nightmare? That's so fucking good.
No. So there's With Honors.
Oh, fucking great! Oh my god!
That was in my honorable mentions. Honorable mentions.
Yeah, great, pick.
So I
Great
have
light film.
With Honors, The Specialist,
Specialist.
and D2 The Mighty Ducks,
Mhm.
and Natural Born Killers.
Nice.
Oh.
I saw Natural Born Killers when it first came out, and I think I was too young because I was like, this is crazy. Like, this is a lot of fucking
Well,
crazy.
I mean, it's not like a rom-com, so like that was the right assessment.
Yeah, no,
Yeah, that's a hard movie to watch.
but
That's
I haven't rewatched it as an adult. I never rewatched it. I just saw that one time when it first came out, and I was a kid, and I
Like
was like,
Schindler's List, you said like a one-time, one and done.
yeah, right. Schindler's List came out when I was in high school, and we watched it every fucking class, every fucking. Oh my god, so many times. I saw Schindler's List beyond how many. I can't even tell you how many times. Honest to God, every class, English, history, fucking. It was like every teacher's go to was like, well, today we're watching Schindler's List. Like, holy fuck,
we
bro.
went to the movies in my history class to go watch Schindler's List.
Yeah, I've seen that movie more times.
That dates me.
I think I've seen it as many times as
No,
Steven
it doesn't.
Spielberg.
I had a whole unit on the Holocaust in 6th grade, and she made us read Night, which is a really heavy fucking movie. And then she's like, to close out our unit on the Holocaust, let's watch Schindler's List. Nightmares for about 2 weeks.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
All right. Deej, honorable mentions.
The Specialist. That movie was really popular. Like
Really
that,
I love that.
and that was a fun, action movie. I think James Caan in that movie is a total badass asshole.
Yeah, he's such a dick.
He is, and Sharon Stone, I think, looked her best in that movie.
Yeah.
So that one was good. I also
Instinct, but
But in this one, like, the thing about Basic Instinct is that I think that's what made. I mean, she was hot in Total Recall, but in Basic Instinct is when she got noticed for being like a so freaking sexy.
Hot.
Right. But then in The Specialist, she was already exploiting that image, so she looked amazing. 94, I kind of have completely forgotten that is the year that the first Santa Claus movie came out.
Yeah.
Ah.
It did.
Yeah, and that started a whole franchise.
Yeah.
And I included here this movie. It's probably not a great movie, but I appreciate it for what it was at the time. Was Disclosure with Demi Moore and
so fucking good.
So good one, man.
yes, because that was like Turn the Tables. She was sexually harassing him.
Yeah.
And I remember when that movie came out. This is like how much society has changed, that people are like, that would never happen in real life. A woman can sexually, harass a man.
Yes, we're all sacks of shit. We could do awful things to each
Hollywood. Oh, Hollywood.
Yeah, no, that's a really good movie. That was in one of the, I have a list of 25 that didn't make my mountain.
Wow, 25.
Jesus Christ. My honorable mentions were Maverick, the Mel Gibson Jodie Foster poker movie. I would be remiss not to mention Interview with the Vampire because it's a really good movie. And then Saved by the Bell, the wedding, the Vegas wedding.
That is that one. I kid you not. I have it here saved in my thing on Wikipedia because I was gonna bring it up.
Yeah,
that's a TV movie, no?
It's a movie. Nobody said cinematic movies. It's a movie. Yeah, it's a movie. And what I find to be the greatest, one of the greatest movies, very underrated. That didn't make my list is When a Man Loves a Woman. You want to talk
That
about,
Oh,
movie is
yes.
so
Yes.
good.
if
Yes.
you want to talk about heavy and drama,
Yes.
Oh,
this is way more dramatic than Legends of the Fall.
Yes.
This is way heavier, but fuck, that movie's
it's
good.
so good.
So
When they
good.
break the bottles on the side of the street.
When
Oh,
I saw that movie in health class, and I was
what?
like, yes, health class, because it deals with drug addiction, with alcohol
Addiction?
addiction.
Oh,
And
come
so
on.
yeah,
It's
I'm
part
telling
of
you,
your dare unit.
I'm telling you, my fucking teachers were like, any excuse, like, is this okay? Yeah, fuck it, let's put like any excuse.
Movie day.
Yeah, movie day. And I saw this movie in health class, and because I've always been a pussy, and I've always been like a crier, and I've always been emotional and cheesy. I fucking like in class in 11th grade, but
Yeah, that movie's so good.
so good. But yeah, again, Missy, if this movie wasn't too heavy for you, you're fine with Legends of the Fall.
No, this movie's super heavy.
Yeah, no,
I'm
it's
gonna watch it because now you've piqued my interest. I'm an emotional cut. So like, let's do it. I'm good.
all right. So that's it. I'm sorry. So let's go with our number ones.
Round one. This is your last chance. After this, there is no turning back.
Do it. Do it. Come on. Come on.
Oh, and Little Giants. All right, Dave. What do you got for your number ones?
Little Giants was on my short list.
That's
So-
short. Little Giants. I get it.
Every list I make is short.
Little, because Little Giants get it. Hey, Tristan.
Hey, what's up, Tristan?
Child. That's
Named after Brad Pitt from Legends of the Fall.
Just one fall, not multiple.
Yeah. So my number one is Forrest Gump. You know, I tabled it already. This is a perfect movie.
It is.
This is an
Agreed.
absolutely perfect movie.
Agreed.
You add or remove any one element from this movie, and it is less than what it is. From the romantic aspect of it, between Forrest and Jenny,
Me.
to the adventure of his life. I mean, absolutely everything in this movie is heartwarming. It's touching, and it's sentimental in a way that recalls Steven Spielberg, but you can tell it's not Spielberg. There's something about it that it's like, oh yeah, you know, there's that sentimentalism there, and it's got that Robert Zemeckis magic. Everything Zemeckis touches has this sort of magical feel to it, and this movie has it, right? Not to mention that it's easy to overlook today, but a lot of those special effects of inputting Forrest into these historical moments was revolutionary at that time. I know that word gets thrown around a lot, especially these days, but the technology was revolutionary.
I wrote my 8th grade paper. I think it was 8th grade or 9th grade. In computer class was in my computer class. I wrote about the special effects in that film, and when I wrote it, and I remember we had to read it in front of class. People didn't know that was like they didn't know that was computer generated either. They were like, "What?
Yeah,
What do you mean? What do you mean? That was moving with a computer?" I'm like, "What the fuck do you?" Stupid.
that's a great paper, dude. If you still had it, I'd love to read it.
Well, it's on 17 floppies, so I don't know if you're gonna be able to fucking floppy like. This is one paragraph. Let's go on to the next paragraph.
Tom Hanks, I think, gives the in a career filled with, you know, the performance of his career. I think he gives the absolute performance of his career in this movie. I mean, there are other Tom Hanks movies that might be quote unquote better. You know, Saving Private Ryan comes to mind, but Philadelphia. But for me, when I think of like his best acting, I think of this movie because he affects me in a way that very few actors, including himself, are able to affect me in a movie. No matter how many times I watch it, I still like. And it's not just like be moved to tears. It's like a fucking downpour when he goes to Jenny at the end of the movie and he says, "Is he like me?" And I just fucking lose it.
Mhm.
He's, you know, that struggle that he's able to portray without making it a joke,
Overly dramatic.
without,
It was
yeah,
a very subtle.
It was. That's a good point. There's so many, and I think the three of us have this movie on our list. Do you have it? Well, do you have it, Neri?
No,
No.
I would have said it's also my number. It's a
Uh,
great movie. I love
it-
this movie. I very often when I rewatch this movie, I always like to talk about it and tell people, I'm like, Forrest Gump, it's like a legitimately great movie, and I think it gets lost. I think people forget about how great it is because catchphrases came out of it, like "Run, Forrest, run," and like this. Even there was even a fucking song based off of that, and like the whole shrimp bubble grump and the
I
shrimp.
mean, a whole restaurant chain came out of this movie.
I think that instances like that take away from the fact that people forget how great this movie really was,
And
because it became such like iconic in pop culture. It's like, oh yeah, run, Forrest, run, and like, no, but you don't understand. That was a fucking really good scene.
yeah.
Like you're mocking it or you're bringing it up in jest, or you're bringing it up to. But I always like this movie is a phenomenal movie. I just the one thing I would say is like my go-to performance for Tom Hanks, and Tom Hanks is my favorite actor of all time. To me, my go-to performance is Castaway. I think that is the performance because he's by him fucking.
Yeah.
hard to argue for that reason.
There's something to be said about that.
But this movie's phenomenal. I love this.
You know
movie.
what I always think?
Wilson was snubbed at the Oscars for
Oh
supporting
my
actor.
god!
What I always think about Forrest Gump.
So was Tom Hanks, and you know who won? Russell Crowe won, and I still, me being a fucking, you know how big of a fan of Gladiator I am, second favorite movie of all time, and even me, I was like, nah, he got robbed. Tom Hanks got robbed. I'm like, oh no.
No, what I find really interesting about Forrest Gump is that I always think, how was that movie sold to an executive board of film executives?
I got you. You know how I did it? Hey, I have Tom Hanks and Robert Zemeckis. I want to make a movie. All right, good. Go ahead.
And that must be because I remember when that movie came out. A little older than you guys. I saw that movie in the movie theater. I remember.
Me too.
I remember the ads, the trailers, and you weren't 100% sure what the movie was about. I remember I went into it thinking it was about football.
Yeah.
Because you really didn't know, because it's how do you capture everything that movie is about in a trailer? And can we talk about the score of that movie? I mean,
let's ask Dave's son who does the score to that movie. He'll be able to.
What I would also say, what I wanted to
Nick
add,
loves scores. I'm sorry.
He does.
What I wanted to add also, because it was also on my mountain, is that this movie does what I think from what I've seen, from the number of movies that I've seen, this movie does what Across the Universe did very well for itself, which is like it hit every major historical moment that was part of the 60s, a decade that for some reason I'm completely fascinated with. So anything related to that, I'm in. But what I think it did very well is that it wove it, because they had that genius idea to add Tom Hanks into actual American historical moments, where it kind of blended it. The lines were blurred, but in a very elegant and like subtle way that it adds to the already perfect performance of the entire cast, because Lieutenant Dan, like an amazing character, an amazing arc that we follow in the movie. So I don't know that this is my favorite Tom Hanks performance, but for sure that's another movie that, like Twister and all these other movies, like if it's on somewhere, I'm stopping what I'm doing and I'm watching.
You know, as far as his performance goes, and it's my favorite performance. I agree with Neri that Castaway, from just a technical standpoint, I mean, he was the movie. So of course it's a more challenging role. But I think that the problem, the challenge for Forrest Gump is that we hadn't seen something like that before, where the main character of this long movie, because this movie is also very long, and it spans what, like 30 years or 20.
Yeah,
Yeah, since he's a kid
it starts
until
in the late 50s and it moves through the 90s.
it ends in
The
94.
fact that he was playing somebody who obviously was challenged, but it wasn't a caricature, and it wasn't. You never wanted to laugh at
it wasn't a caricature.
a caricature.
Yeah, it wasn't it wasn't like a cartoon. He didn't do it cartoony. What I found very interesting is I didn't find this out until decades later, man, that the reason Tom Hanks had that accent in that movie was because the kid that they cast to play his younger self had that accent. And they were trying to get him to not to lose the accent, the kid. And so he went up to Zemeckis and he said, "Why don't I just talk like him?" And so he reverse engineered it because they wanted that kid as an actor, but they wanted him to kind of like lose the accent. And then Tom was like, Tom, like I'm on a fucking first name basis with this guy.
Tommy.
So Tommy was like, "Yo, Bobby, why don't we?" So Tom Hanks said, "Why don't I just take on his accent?" And then he's like,
Another
Zemeckis
thing
was like,
about this movie is that the comedic relief, like it's peppered in their perfect places. And like, for instance, in the beginning, when the principal comes out of Forrest's house and he's patting himself down, he goes,
"Your mama sure does care about your
and
education."
He goes, and all the kid does is turn to him and go, make it through that scene without like cracking up, because it's so funny that he didn't say or do anything. He was just like, "Bitch, I just heard you. Relax with your ego."
You know what I love about him, about this character, is that aside from the childhood, because he got bullied as a kid, as a young child, but the rest of when Tom Hanks is playing him, he's not a bitch. He's not a pussy. Like, this guy is not. Like, he fights and he'll fight if he has to, but he doesn't resort to that all the time. But if he's like, "No, I'm not backing down." And when he had that fight at the Black Panther party, and then he says, "I'm sorry for ruining the Black Panther party," I was like, "God damn, what's so fucking good?" This movie's great, man. There's nothing negative. It's perfect.
I think it's as close to flawless as a movie
can get. Yeah.
And just a little last note. Obviously we all love Jenny. That when I watched House of Cards, and I got really into House of Cards, I hated the fact that Robin Wright was such a bitch, because I'm like, it's Jenny. Like, how can Jenny be such a horrible?
What happened to Jenny?
But she wasn't perfect in
I
that
gotta
movie
be honest
either.
with you. I gotta be honest with you, Deej. I've never seen Forrest Gump and been like, "I love Jenny." I'm like, man, what a bitch. Like, she's so mean to him. She fucking takes advantage of him. She fucking she
has trauma to work through.
Yes, obviously, yes. I'm not saying that it's not. I'm not saying it's like, "Oh, she's a bitch for no reason." I'm saying, like, man, she's like, this guy's fucking like, she's all over him.
But you were mad at her, because I was never mad at her.
I wasn't mad. I just never thought she was fucking perfect.
There was
House of Cards. I was like, yeah, that sounds about right.
There was frustration there because she had this perfect man, and almost didn't even realize it until it was too late.
It was too late.
So yeah, I mean, I never saw her as like, this.
I was never mad at her. I just never saw her as perfect. I never saw her.
The only time I ever saw Robin Wright as perfect was in The Princess Bride.
Well, yeah, but I think as much as we love The Princess Bride, I dare to say that Jenny eclipsed that. Maybe not.
No.
I mean,
no.
right there for me.
No,
I don't know.
No, say no. David. Say no. Don't be fucking. Don't no. Say no. Don't let this newcomer.
I'm no newcomer. I've been 7 times on this show.
Yeah. So don't let this guy come in and fucking try to sell you a fucking bag of shit.
No, man. I don't know.
Buttercup
and Jenny are, I think, equally as iconic, man.
I don't think Jenny's iconic at all. Fuck that. I'll take Princess Bride all day, every day, over Jenny. All right. So
look how he said Jenny over Jenny.
Jenny.
Yeah.
Jenny, you're my girl.
I know we've been talking forever, but my favorite line is that I may not be a very smart man, but I do know what love is. That shit.
Oh, perfect. Perfect.
Every
You're trying not to
fucking
cry right now,
time.
sir.
That shit hits every time, bro. All right, Missy, what's your number one?
Okay, so to the surprise of probably only DJ, because everyone else has called it, and everybody that knows me would call it. My number one is a cult classic. It is a favorite to this day, and it's Reality Bites.
What?
Whoa.
Yeah,
That's,
Whoa.
stop it. So
you say I only hear what I want to.
okay, I was gonna get to the soundtrack, but we can talk about it now. The soundtrack to this movie is epic, and I just want to paint a picture because they're not getting a lot of shit because it's pretty like it's
On
an
brand?
easy call if I'm talking about it. But you have to understand something, that this same year that I saw this movie is also the same year that my so-called life came into my life, and these are two fucking pillars of my current identity. Like, I have not been able to let go of the impact of these two like entertainment moments of that year
I haven't seen
to
any of
this,
these two things. I haven't seen
to
any.
this day. And so it's a great movie. The cast is stacked. You have Janine Garofalo plays an amazing best friend role in this movie. You have Winona Ryder, Ethan Hawke. I feel like at the peak of his Ethan Hawke-ness.
Yes, yeah, I agree.
Directed
Yeah.
by Ben Stiller, and he also has a role in the movie. And it's a cult classic. It debuted in January of '94 in Sundance, and then it was released in the next month. It didn't make a lot of money. It cost about 11 million to make, and it only made 33 million, which is funny to be like, oh, it only made 33 million. Like, I wish I had a million, but like in terms of movies, that's what I mean.
That's still a
the reason
success,
why-
though.
It's a success, but it's largely considered a cult classic because it
Yeah.
wasn't as popular as
Yeah,
it could have been.
an indie film. Yeah.
It's an indie film, yeah. So the reason, and I could talk about this movie forever, but the reason that I really love this movie and the message of this movie is that the center conflict of all of these characters is that they're at a crossroad in your life that I think everybody can relate to, where you've been told to follow your dreams and your passions and everything, but then, for lack of a better word, there's an intersection of reality that comes into play where adulthood and responsibilities and growing up and all of these things like come into play right at the moment, at the cusp of when you're supposed to be at your most idealistic and your most like anything is possible. And the main character, Lelena, she has this very naive approach to her filmmaking because she wants to change the world. And like, who the fuck hasn't ever been like, I could change the world? Like, everybody has that moment in their coming of age. And I just love it's such a 90s like movie, so much plaid, and so much the movie touches on the HIV crisis, which was very prominent at that time, where Janine Garofalo's characters doesn't know if she has it or not, and coming out, Steve, how do you say his name? Steve Zahn. He plays Sammy's coming out. Like, there's so many things that were prominent social issues in this moment of time, and I just think it's timeless, and I love it. That's it.
Sounds good.
And it had a great soundtrack.
Such a good soundtrack. Like, such a good sound. Why are you laughing? It's true.
I'm laughing because the way Deej said it is like everything after all you said, he's like, and the song, let's talk about the song. Like, he was just like, and the soundtrack. Like, he was just like,
well, because
it was almost as if he was waiting for you to stop talking so you could be like, and now we talk about the fucking soundtrack, right? Like, that's where I cared about. It made me laugh.
And I would say that no, I lost it, so that I think I'm done talking.
The soundtrack is good. I want to see this movie. I've never saw this movie. So I would like to see it.
Nobody has seen this movie?
No.
I have, yeah.
Deej has heard the soundtrack.
I've heard the soundtrack.
I don't think I've been. Yes, That's true, Andrew. It was fucking filmed in Houston, which is such a random city to film this. Like this. Usually, the go-to like cities for these movies is like New York, California, Chicago, things like that. But not.
You know what I think is really interesting about that movie, because I saw it recently and I haven't seen it in a while, is that there's aspects of that movie that are extremely dated, right? That are very, very like not only 90s, like mid 90s. Like you can figure out what year it is. It's not late 90s. It's not early 90s. You can figure out it's like 94, 95.
The armpit of death.
It's funny.
But you mentioned it. The central like story is one that is still relevant, even though the movie, is very much a product of its time.
Yeah, for sure.
No, but that's a great movie. I feel that was another movie that when it came out, it was very popular. It may have not made a ton of money, but it was very, pop culture.
Well, typically, I feel like I googled it, and I feel like cult classics. Dave, you couldn't correct me if I'm wrong, but cult classics are considered cult classics because they gain the popularity after
the release.
So
but that movie was popular when it came out, because back to the soundtrack, Lisa Loeb, her song Stay,
God,
you guys probably know this, but it's been the only time in the history of Billboard where a song went to number one and the person did not have a record deal.
Really?
Oh, wow.
I didn't know that.
She was not signed.
I did not know that.
That's like a song they put last minute on the soundtrack.
Yeah.
One of the reasons why the video is so simple and rudimentary it's not a coincidence. It's because they didn't have any money for her. She had no budget. She had no record deal. And Ethan Hawke directed that video.
Interesting.
It's a really good music video too.
Yeah.
All right. So Deej, what is your number one?
Well, my number one is, when you said 1994, I was like, oh, this is going to be my number one. I think maybe David had it in his list, is Shawshank Redemption.
Nice.
That's me.
It's one of those that there's so much to say, but what can I say? It's
what can we say? What can either one of us say that hasn't already been said before?
It's everything about that movie is perfect for me on a personal note, but a lot of people feel this way. Raquel Welch, I think, is one of the most beautiful women of all time. So her poster from what's that movie called? 1 million years.
1 million years BC.
Yeah, is icing on the cake. But just everything. That's the type of movie that again, kind of like Forrest Gump. It's flawless. It actually does have a happy ending, so that's we get something out of that.
No,
I forget. Did that movie win Best Picture?
I don't know if it did, but it should have.
I can look it up.
Fucking great. I love everything about Shawshank Redemption. It really is a perfect movie. For a long time, not now because I checked it out recently, but for a long time, I'm talking about up until 8 years ago, it was the only film that I could find that was 10 stars on IMDb. It was fucking rated not even The Godfather at that point. Whereas now it's like a 9.6 or 9.2, whatever the fuck it is now, because people are stupid. But I found that incredible. I remember thinking about this 7-8 years ago, having this conversation with a friend of mine. We went through this. We were comedians in a green room, and we were literally going through IMDb to find another. What about Godfather? When we thought about these iconic movies, and we could not find another fucking 10-star movie. And nobody argued it. Nobody goes on. Shawshank is good, but it's not 10 stars. No, we would yeah, it's fucking 10 stars.
Who's gonna argue that?
It's a perfect movie.
It's in whenever they do these lists of best movies of all time, like AFI and all that, I believe it's been number one before. I don't know if
it hasn't. AFI's number ones have always been the fucking what's it called? The one with
Citizen Kane was number one.
Yeah, Citizen Kane was number one. It's all these old fucking 40.
But I know it's been number one in several lists, and obviously we could have an argument as to what is the greatest movie of all time. I think that's impossible to say. But Shawshank is definitely up there. And
it's such a perfect movie. It's such a great movie all the way across. I love everything about this movie. The acting in this movie, the storytelling in this movie, you feel everything that goes on in this. Like you feel like when those guys are on the roof and like just sipping beer and like just like enjoying their day of freedom because they're fucking tarring a roof. Do you understand? Like their level of like I get to enjoy a bucket of beer because after a long day of tarring a roof, like tarring a roof is one of the hardest things to fucking to do, and like you felt that. I just felt that movie's fantastic. I mean, just it's so great. The way he gets his revenge and the way everything. I mean, I've watched it a million times, and every time when he's going back to his cell, I pay attention to the shoes because you never fucking pay attention to the shoes, man. So good. Such a good movie.
So that year, Forrest Gump won Best Movie.
Yeah, you can't argue that either. Can't argue that either. But Shawshank,
No,
It was nominated,
yeah,
but it didn't.
and when you come to think about it, like Shawshank, it's not a complex story, really. It's just he outsmarted everybody, and I like when Morgan Freeman is kind of like retelling what happened. That he's like Remy Delane had to go through what was it like a mile of shit.
yeah. 300 yards of shit to come out squeaky clean on the other side.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so fucking good, man. Go through 3 years of shit. I love everything about that film. It's fucking fantastic. It's just stellar on every account. Great pick, man. Great pick. My number one, now that we're talking about amazing stellar performances in films, my number one is Time Cop. And I have zero qualms about picking Time Cop for my number one. I fucking love that film. It is Van Damme's second best film aside from JCVD, which is like a playoff of his real life. And I've talked about a Time Cop a million times on this podcast. If you're new to the podcast, go back and listen. I promise you. I've talked about fucking Time Cop plenty of times, so I'm not going to bore you again with it. But it is a great movie. It is a great movie regardless of whether or not Jean-Claude Van Damme, which is my favorite action star, was in it or not. Like you could put anybody in this movie and it would be fucking great. I love the fact that Van Damme was in it, don't get me wrong, but you put anybody, you put Keanu Reeves in this role, you put anybody in this role and it would still be an amazing movie. That's how good this movie is. The fact that it had Van Damme in it, which again is my favorite all-time action star, is just chef's kiss to it. So it's perfect. So Time Cop. I know nobody's gonna have it. I know nobody gives a shit about it, but I fucking adore this film.
No, man, Time Cop is great. I mean, it's we've talked about this before. I'm not the biggest JCVD fan. I like his good stuff, and this is the best of his stuff.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
Why do you guys think he gets so much shit?
Because he does
His attitude.
He said it before. He's talked about it in years later. He talked about Time Cop. He was doing so much blow in this movie during this part of his life, and he talked about that when the studio came to him because they wanted to do a sequel. The studio came up to him and said, "We want you to do other movies because this was such a huge hit, especially for a quote unquote Van Damme movie. This is such a huge hit." That they wanted. Universal came to him and said, we want to just give you whatever you want, and he demanded $20 million because that's what Jim Carrey was getting, because that's what these guys were getting, and he thought that he was like, and then he says it later. He says it like in recent interviews. He says, "I was so pigheaded, and I was so cooked out in my mind that they never called me back. They never counter offered. They never fucking just." And then that's where the beginning of the end of his career was, where it was just that. But I think he gets shit because it's hard. He's hard to understand. His English isn't great. He has a thick accent, and for a long time he was just known for all these action movies which were basically remakes of each other. It's like, all right, and then at the end I'm gonna do a split, and then I'm gonna do a fucking roundhouse, and there's gonna be this and that. And there's nothing wrong with that, but I think that's why I think that's what makes him an easy mark for people that make jokes or whatever. But I've seen him do real acting. Yeah, I've seen him in that movie JCVD do real acting, and I could tell you I think he's a good actor. I just don't think he gets the vehicles, and because when the first 4 movies you do is just all kicking and fucking and splits, I don't think you're gonna get offered the roles of fucking Shakespeare. I don't think you're gonna be doing Othello at that point.
Well, at least he's not Steven Seagal.
Legit. Which I look back at my friends, because back in the days when we were kids it was fucking old school East Coast, West Coast shit where either you like fucking JCVD or you like fucking Seagal. You can't like both. Which one is better? You can't fucking say you like both. And I was a JCVD guy, and my friend was a fucking Steven Seagal guy. And I look back and be like, I fucking told you, dummy. But anyway, that's my pick. I've talked about Time Cop a billion times. I don't want to bore people. Time Cop was great, and I'm unapologetic about it. I say this as unironically as possible. That is my number one pick without fucking bullet, and there was nothing that was gonna move that fucking pick for me. All right, so the number ones were the number ones were Forrest Gump, Reality Bites, Shank Redemptions, and Time Cops. So we got a few repeats. We have Forrest Gump, Speed, Shawshank. We're all repeats. So we need one more for the final mountain.
I'm gonna throw Pulp Fiction out there just for its like level of iconic status.
I'm gonna throw Ace Ventura because it's the only comedy that was brought about.
We should have a comedy on there. I'm gonna kind of agree with that.
I mean, I never saw Reality Bites, but I don't by the title. I don't know if that means it's a the description. I don't know.
I am alone on that island.
No, I haven't seen it, so I don't know if it's a comedy. It's all I'm saying. But by the
Nobody
title,
has ever seen it. I don't know anybody that besides DJ, but I don't know anybody in my close circle of friends that have seen it. So I'm alone.
You haven't seen it either, David?
No.
Wow.
No, I've been friends with Missy for over 10 years, and somehow I've never seen it.
He's managed to escape it because Stephanie
he's seen
and
the 1922 version of Dracula 14 times this year.
DJ, Stephanie and I did a deal once where I hadn't seen Birdcage. This was like 10 years ago. I hadn't seen Birdcage. And she's like, you have to watch it. And I was like, hey, I'll watch Birdcage with you, and then you'll watch Reality Bites with me. And then 10 years have passed, and that bitch has still not watched Reality Bites with me.
Oh,
but
listen,
Birdcage.
I told you not to make that deal because I don't know how many times I've told her, hey, I'll watch this movie you want me to watch, and you watch this other movie I want you to watch. And she never ends up watching the movie.
And every time that I'm at her house and she puts on a movie, I'm like, you could have put on Reality Bites. She's like, yeah, you're right. I could have.
I could just hear her saying that.
She does not give a crap.
My wife and I just made that deal recently where I haven't seen Selena and she hasn't seen La Bamba. I'm like,
okay. I'm glad you mentioned that, Mary, because the other day on Instagram, that little back and forth you had that you're like, I'm disappointed. I'm like, I was like, no apologies. I like Selena more than La Bamba, and I want to eat pizza when I watch Selena.
I don't know what that means.
Pepperoni pizza.
I don't know.
There's a scene. There's a few scenes with her and her dad eating pizza, but I don't know if it was on purpose. But the way it was shot, the pizza looks really good.
You know what movie has really good food shots in it? I swear to God, Pretty Woman. You ever watch Pretty Woman? There's so much food in that movie where you go, they're fucking eating and it's all forms of food. They go from escargot to pizza in the park, and they do all these. And I remember as a kid watching it, going like, man, this is the pictures. This looks amazing.
That's my number one, actually.
So clearly, I was a fat kid. All right. So I'm gonna vote for Ace Ventura number one, but you guys do whatever you want to do. That's just my vote. It's a comedy. It's the only comedy on the list. So
I'll go with Ace Ventura. I mean, Pulp Fiction, yeah, but so it could be a comedy.
All right.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm with that.
All right. So the final mountain is Forrest Gump, Speed, Shawshank Redemption, and Ace Ventura. What did Andrew say? The Bouncer is a well-acted movie. You're right. That is it's a very recent Van Damme movie, very independent, like European independent. So that's like super independent, and it's actually a really good. Yeah, it's well acted movie. You're absolutely right, Andrew.
So I'm pretty sure now that we're kind of done. I was pretty sure I was gonna have to fight because I was sure that one of you was gonna pick in your top 4 The Lion King. And I love Disney. I love Disney movies, and I am probably the only person on earth that does not care for The Lion King.
Yeah, you're right. You are the only person.
Thank you very much for your time. That's all for us, guys. If you want to follow Deej and his fucking delirium thoughts, please go listen to him and Ish that was on last week.
Beauty and the Beast is the best movie of the Disney Renaissance era.
How do you know?
I fight anybody with that.
Wrong.
How do you
So
know?
wrong.
How do you
It was
know?
the first movie that was nominated for an Academy Award.
First
You
animated,
don't know that.
Animated movie.
me and Missy
You don't
agree
know
with
that.
you.
You
We
don't
think
know
Beauty and
that.
the Beast is better, but that's not to say that it's not that Lion King is not good. Like,
Well, I'm not saying The Lion King is bad. It's just
no, that's what you said. You said you don't like
He
Lion.
said he said
That's what
he
you
doesn't
said.
care for it. He didn't
Right.
say anything derogatory.
All
He
right.
just said he
So
doesn't
go
care
listen
for
to
it.
Deej and the ramblings of a madman on Better Let Me Tell You. His podcast, Better Let Me Tell You, is available on the Geek Bro Network. Go to geekbro.net. Check out the podcasts such as Better Let Me Tell You, the What's Up Bro podcast, and Child Like at Best with Mike Valdez, A Dose of Ellie. So make sure you guys go to geekbro.net. Check that out. Have a lot of fun. Missy's writing, you can find her at missywrites.com. That's missywrites.com. And her handle, as you can see on the screen, is Missy the Writer on Instagram and Twitter. So Missy at Missy the Writer. Check out my comedy at naryscience.com or whatwashisname.com. Go to my Instagram and you have all the links to everything you could possibly want, including what am I thinking about? Baby registry
Merch.
gifts. 'Cause my wife is about to fucking give birth in 2 months. So whatever. I'm just saying, if you want to donate, fucking it's there. Everything's on there. Thank you very much for checking us out. Go to YouTube, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and it is MtGeekmore on YouTube. Subscribe to that. Thank you for checking us out. That's how lists are made.